Blog Talk Radio.
A black man was shot and wounded by a Wisconsin police officer, leading to a night of protest. The shooting happened around 5 p.m. when police were called responding to a call about a domestic dispute. The incident was captured on cell phone camera from across the street. The black man later identified himself as Jacob Blake and is seen walking around the front of his SUV with his driver's door open as officers followed him and shouted at him with their guns drawn. As the door opens and he leans into the SUV, an officer grabs his shirt from behind and opens fire while Blake has his back turned, shooting him in the back. 7 shots were fired into his back. It is unclear how many shots struck Blake, but Blake was taken to Milwaukee Hospital and is in serious condition. 3 officers were placed on administrative leave. This has to stop. Another unarmed black man shot. How about you use a taser and follow police procedures, police officers? I know 99% of the police officers are good. Crowds of protesters faced off with law enforcement and tear gas was used on them. Protesters marched to the county public safety building where they were met by officers in riot gear. This is all Trump's America. A black man was shot and wounded by a Wisconsin police officer, leading to a night of protest. The shooting happened around 5 p.m.
That bothered me the most is that my child is, well, there's so many things that bothered me, but when I walked into that room, you know, he's paralyzed from the waist down. Why do they have that cold steel on my son's ankle? He can't get up. He couldn't get up if he wanted to. So what was, that's a little overkill to have him shackled to the bed. That just makes no sense to me. So,
good evening, everybody, and welcome to All You Need to Know Radio. I am your host, John Hollywood, coming to you, sadly, that yet another black man has been killed, unarmed. I don't get it. I actually went through police training when I was dating a cop, and they teach you in police training that you do not draw your weapon unless someone draws a weapon and points it at you. And then you fire 3 shots center mass in their chest, because when you pull your weapon, you are wanting to subdue this person and stop them and really kill them is what they teach you. The other thing they teach you is that you are not allowed to use deadly force unless they use deadly force first. What happened to tasers? What happened to following procedure? I'll tell you what happened. Donald Trump. Donald Trump said, "Oh, by the way, if you bang their head in the head of the door when you put them in a police car, that's okay." See, Donald Trump has given the police the right to evict, to just execute people, because there's no rules, because the police think they're going to back them up. And defunding the police is a bunch of bullshit. That is not what the Republicans want to do. Today's show, let's do some housekeeping, is brought to you by the Law Office of Woolridge & Nunn, 972-866-4852. You can also go to woolridgeandnunn.com. We are so fortunate to have Amos Warwick with Woolridge & Nunn, one of the partners of the law firm. Welcome, Amos.
Thank you for having me on again, John. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Can you even believe we're here again?
I can, and I can for a variety of reasons. I think that you correctly identified that the police departments of America writ large are emboldened by the incitements of violence and the stochastic terrorism of Trump and his cronies. I also think that this was going on, I'm thinking back to, for example, Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown. This was going on far before Trump was the president, and there are some legal reasons for that, one of them being the doctrine of qualified immunity, which basically makes it extremely, extremely challenging to hold the police liable for excessive force and for bad acts. Or it's not just the police; it's the same goes for the schools and prisons and judges, and all state employees have something called qualified immunity, and it makes it incredibly challenging to win a lawsuit against them.
But this guy was shot 7 times in the back. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Let's set the scene here. There's 3 officers. You can see the video, and you can see it on All You Need to Know Radio's Facebook page. Warning, it is hard to watch. Because you see this man walking around the SUV. You hear the cops screaming at him, stop, stop. That's still not a reason to draw your guns. When he does not stop, they all 3 draw their guns. Now, I may be going crazy here, but 3 cops to 1 guy, why do you need a gun? You're police trained. You physically should be able to take this guy out. There are certain places you can hit people and take them to the ground. You do not need to execute them because they're not following your instructions. And all these radio hosts like Chris, oh God, what's his name? I lost his name. He's on WBAP at 8 o'clock. Chris, whatever, I can't think of his name. He's on WBAP, and Rick Foster, and they all say they didn't listen to him, so therefore he deserved to get shot. Let me tell you something. You guys are you're a disgrace to the journalism and to the radio hosts. Learn the law before you get on there and you try to preach to people what it is. Because I'm telling you right now, that's bullshit. It's complete bullshit.
And I think to talk about the law a little bit, police have been used to enforce violence by the government, and we want them to be the only people who can use violence in the right situation. But when they take the role of judge, jury, and executioner in a situation where they clearly did not, and your point is very well taken, John, that they clearly did not have to shoot to kill in this particular situation. And it's grossly inappropriate and a massive violation of the spirit of the law for the police to execute people on the streets. The issue, as I went back to, is that the spirit of the law has been twisted, and the law of qualified immunity in its detailed case law keeps expanding and expanding and expanding what the police can get away with, which, in my opinion, is a huge mistake and needs to be corrected by the legislature. Joe Biden is a lot more likely to do that than Donald Trump. John, I can't hear you.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I heard my phone say unmuted. My name's Nick. I'm in Orlando.
Nick, this is Almost Orange. I'm muted as well. How are you doing? I can't hear you, John.
Yeah, he went. I heard him talking, and then.
Hey, just go ahead and call right back, you know.
Is your show still on?
everybody. So we're back. Let's reconnect. Almost. I don't think that guy really wanted to talk. I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
So,
well, where were we?
So what we were talking about is about the law about officers shooting people.
Right. So it's qualified immunity, and it's a serious problem. In my opinion, the courts have twisted the original law to make it so challenging for an individual or a family who feels as though their civil rights have been violated. It's I don't want to say impossible, because it is not truly impossible, but it's incredibly challenging to bring a legal case against a law enforcement officer or a prison guard or someone like that because of the law of qualified immunity. And in my opinion, the right way forward is not through additional legal challenges, but rather through a legislative change such that the federal government, the Congress, and the president can pass a law changing the way we deal with qualified immunity to make it easier for the police to be held accountable, or for others, prison guards, to be held accountable for horrific behavior that should be a violation of the Constitution and the civil rights of individuals. And my point is that Joe Biden and a democratically led legislature is much more likely than Donald Trump and the Republicans to move on this issue. And it's kind of an interesting thing, because in the 80s and 90s, Biden was seen as a tough-on-crime Democrat. But it appears that he has kind of done a bit of an about-face on that these days, and in general would like to change those rules to make it more beneficial for individuals.
Yeah, I'm. The thing is that, and I know that I'm going to ask you to get into someone's mind. Have you ever worked with a police officer in a lawsuit before?
I have. I've taken, I'd say, an estimate of about 50 depositions of police officers in my career.
So, would you agree that 99.9% of them are really good cops?
That's a complicated question, John. I'm going to say no, but I'm going to say no but. And here's what I mean. I think the problem is the police union and police protecting other police who they know are bad. So, people always say, but it's just a few bad apples. It's just a few bad apples. But what's the complete phrase? A few bad apples spoil the bunch. And my point is that if an individual officer is aware, like the guys who, in going back to the George Floyd murder, there were several accessories who, 3 other cops besides Officer Chowtain, who were around the officer when he was kneeling on George Floyd's neck, murdering him. And they could have come out and said, this guy committed murder and we tried to stop him. But instead, they circle the wagons and say, he's not a bad cop. He did everything right. And so while I agree that 99.9% of cops don't commit horrible acts of abuse of force and abuse in general, the fact is that all, or for the very large part, protect each other and don't report each other when they should, and that's a violation of public trust.
So, almost, are we going to have you for 15 more minutes, or we need to let you go?
I'm fine. I can keep going.
All right. So we're going to take a break. Is what that music means. When we come back, guys, you're listening to All You Need to Know Radio. I am your host, John Hollywood. We are normally heard exclusively live on Blog Talk Radio every Thursday night, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Some breaking news real quick. I almost doesn't even know. we are now on iHeartRadio podcast, and we are the number one podcast on iHeartRadio. So don't touch that dial. This is All You Need to Know Radio, brought to you tonight by the Law Office of Woolridge and Nunn, 972-866-4852. 972-866-4852. As for Almost, we'll be right back.
Less than 2 years ago, mortgage rates were between 5.5% and 6%. Do you know right now mortgage rates are nearly half of that? You can call TexasLending.com and may be able to drop your mortgage rate in half. Call 972-387-4600 or go online and apply with TexasLending.com. If you save just 1% on a $240,000 mortgage loan, you may save up to $200 every month in interest. Apply that savings towards your mortgage. Pay it off faster. Call TexasLending.com today, 972-387-4600. We've won the Consumer's Choice Award for the last 13 years. Call right now. Talk with a live person for a free quote. 972-387-4600, TexasLending.com.
Over the past 4 years, I've had the privilege to work closely with our president. Not much gets past him. And when he has an opinion, he's liable to share it.
And then I see the disinfectant. I'm not a doctor, but I'm like a person that has a good, you-know-what.
President Trump marshaled the full resources of our federal government from the outset.
First of all, governors are supposed to be doing a lot of this work, and they are doing a lot of this work. You know, we're not a shipping clerk.
He directed us to forge a seamless partnership with governors across America in both political parties.
I say, Mike, don't call the governor of Washington. You're wasting your time with him. Don't call the woman in Michigan.
We partnered with private industry to reinvent testing.
You can get your test, and those results may not come back for 7 or 8 days.
And we have coordinated the delivery of billions of pieces of personal protective equipment.
One N95 mask for the entire ship.
One night recently, there was only one gown on the floor.
On November 3rd, you need to ask yourself.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
Who do you trust to rebuild this economy? Make America great again. Again.
This allergy season, your eyes can feel better. Similasan allergy eye drops are made with natural active ingredients, not harsh chemicals. Similasan of Switzerland. Feel good about feeling better.
Legacy started over 225 years ago. As our nation grew, the Mint grew, extending branches far beyond its Philadelphia roots. Across this country, the Mint has cared for our stories, our freedom, and our liberty, carefully rendering them into coins to remind this country of who we are. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. Explore the collection at catalog.usmint.gov.
To a birch arrangement is I didn't know flowers could look like this. I'm Brittany Ash. I'm a floral artist and the founder and director of Birch. I use Squarespace as a tool to express what my business is to those who don't get to experience it in person. Squarespace, in a lot of ways, made me an actual business. I think it's the first thing that people look at. Without that platform, it doesn't really seem that legitimate.
Then everybody knew my name. No more
right, everybody. Welcome back to All You Need to Know Radio. I am your host, John Hollywood. That is the king of metal himself, Ozzy Osbourne, and the queen of pop, Elton John. In their number one hit, Ordinary Man. You know, they're both in their 70s, and they got a number one hit with this song. I implore you to go and get it. It's so amazing. So, almost what we were talking about was, so do you think these people are going to, you've dealt with police officers before. What's
yes, sir.
your opinion broadly? Do police officers always do it wrong, or are people taking advantage of the legal system?
No. So I think that it's a pendulum, right? And it's completely false to say that, you know, all cops are, you know, pigs or enemies of the populace. It's just not true. There's a lot of great, fine officers who help people every day from very serious, you know, if you're the victim of a robbery or a rape or something horrific like that, you need the cops, and often they do a fantastic job. But there's a pendulum there where, you know, sometimes the police do a really, really terrible job. I read a story this morning where a 92-year-old grandmother was injured when she was forcibly handcuffed for running a stop sign in California. And it's like, that police officer made a very bad decision. He should not have handcuffed a 92-year-old for running a stop sign. That shouldn't have happened. Similarly, the police that you were describing at the very, very top of the show probably shouldn't have shot the guy 7 times in the back. That seems like bad policing. That doesn't mean, you know, the stories of good policing don't hit the news as much. That doesn't mean they don't exist. But,
you know,
I think.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I do think that there is a persistent issue with the police over-policing black and brown neighborhoods and getting away with quite literal murder of black and brown people primarily. I mean, it happens to white people as well who are murdered by the police, but it seems that most of the time people getting murdered by police happen to be black or Mexican or Hispanic, and it's just a shame. I mean, it doesn't have to be like that. In other countries, they also have violent crime, but they have far fewer police-involved killings. And so, you know, it's a fair question to ask if there is a broader problem. You asked me to talk in broad strokes, and I think that in broad strokes, yes, there is a broad issue with over-policing and overuse of deadly force or even non-deadly force against particularly black and Hispanic individuals.
So I just want to confirm this because I've dated police officers. Mm-hmm. Isn't it the law that they cannot draw their weapon as deadly force unless a weapon is drawn and pointed at them?
Oh, John, that's too simplistic. The answer is that is not the law.
Okay.
My understanding is that, and I'm, to be clear for your listeners, I am not an expert on the laws surrounding policing. I know a thing or two, but it's not my day-to-day work. My understanding is that each police department separately sets its own use of force guidelines, and one of the issues is they're often non-published or very, very hard to find. And so, you know, people want to say, well, this is the rule, just like you did. People want to say, you know, this is the law. But in actuality, the law is different, you know, one street over from Garland to Richardson. The law is different.
Well, and I definitely wanted to say something that is a law if it's not. So I appreciate you clearing that up for me.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. Did you watch the Republican convention at all?
I watched parts of it. I did not watch the whole thing. I found it challenging to watch, to be frank.
Because it's so full of lies?
Yes. I mean, you watch. I did watch a good portion. I think I watched about 3/4 of Donald Trump's acceptance speech where he accepted the nomination. And we've talked about this before on the show. He did what he frequently does, which is the Gish Gallop, or the fire hose of falsehood, where it's like essentially every sentence he says is a lie, and it takes so much more time to go through and disprove all of his lies that once you've finished disproving the first, fact-checking the first or second one, he's on the 25th one, and it's just, they're rewriting history with regards to coronavirus, with regards to the economy. They're trying to say, show images of America under Trump's control and say, this is what's going to happen if Biden wins, and it's, like, ridiculous.
Do you think people are buying this? Because just like you just said, everything that Donald Trump got up there and said, Joe Biden even was on Good Morning America, and not in his basement, by the way. Stupid. And he said every time Donald Trump says all these, how bad everything is, doesn't he realize this is his America? 180,000 people have died on Donald Trump's watch, no one else's watch. And whether he can't take the good credit with the bad credit, the buck stops with the President of the United States. So,
right. I mean, he always talks about the economy. The GDP fell 33% in April. That's the largest single drop in one quarter ever.
But the virus, the Trump virus,
mm-hmm.
as he called it, the China virus, over and over and over last night. He talked about Joe Biden. He named him 42 times in an hour and a 10-minute speech. That's desperation. That's desperation. I'm only going to play 2 minutes, and I'm not even going to ask you to listen to it because I know you don't want to. Here's question. The Hatch Act. Tell me about what that law is.
Okay, good question. And that's a pretty simple law, and it says that the federal government's resources should not be used for campaigning. There's more to it, but that's the basic rule. And so when Donald Trump gives a acceptance speech for a partisan political convention, the Republican National Committee's convention is pretty much the most partisan thing you could do. When he gives an acceptance speech from the White House, that is a blatant violation of the Hatch Act. Similarly, when when Mike Pompeo gives his speech from his diplomatic mission in Jerusalem, that's also a violation of the Hatch Act. Now, this used to be something that people cared about, that, even in Republican administrations, George W. Bush, when he was running for re-election, did not use the White House as a prop. It's inappropriate for a bunch of reasons, and it's literally a violation of the law. But, the people who would enforce the law at the Department of Justice or in the Senate of the United States have shown them to be toadies of Donald Trump. And so when I say, I often say it's not just Trump the man, it's Trump and all of his GOP enablers. It's because they used to seem to care about this kind of thing, and now they just don't, because they've decided they'd rather pledge loyalty to the king than actually uphold the laws that they allege they care about so deeply.
Exactly. And so is it possible when Joe Biden takes the reins, he could prosecute him for it?
It is possible, and I would love to see it happen. I actually think that there's, not that the Hatch Act is not serious, because it actually is a pretty serious issue. But it's kind of like the Gish Gallop, what we were talking about. There are so many crimes, you almost feel like you have to pick and choose. I'm much, much more concerned about Paul Manafort providing polling data to Konstantin Klimnik, a Russian spy, than I am about Donald Trump speaking at the RNC from the White House. As a substantive matter, treason is more important than a Hatch-Act violation. So I'm more interested in a Biden administration trying to really get to the bottom of what happened and follow the money and the finances underlying the chickenry with the 2016 election, and it appears to be also happening in the 2020 election, where Russia appears to be supporting and or blackmailing Donald Trump.
And the funny thing is,
I want them to prosecute the Hatch-Act violation too. I think there's other matters that are more important.
So did you hear that the Fifth Circuit of Appeals Court denied Donald Trump's emergency motion to hold off on the subpoena for his financial records?
I did, and I'm interested to see what the next move will be, because I wouldn't be surprised if they petitioned to the Supreme Court of the United States for an emergency stay, and I don't know if it's been granted yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if Roberts issued a stay like he's been doing. We actually talked about this about 3 weeks ago, where the Supreme Court of the United States used to be this very rare thing where they would be petitioned for an emergency stay and they would grant an emergency stay. It used to basically never happen, or happen once or twice in a year. And it's happened something like 20 times in the last year, because federal judges keep saying Donald Trump's policies are unconstitutional, but then the Supreme Court does not enforce the injunctions. So we have continued policies like the remain in Mexico policy at the border that have been ruled to be unconstitutional by a federal court, but are happening anyway because of the Supreme Court's stay. In my opinion, it's an inappropriate use of the Supreme Court's docket, and it's kind of a shadow docket. And the Solicitor General of the United States should probably be impeached for it. But that's kind of a very technical issue.
Are you saying that the ruling that the court said that the kids had to not be caged and no one else could be caged, that's not being enforced?
No, that actually is being enforced. The Supreme Court was petitioned to stay that ruling, but they denied that one. But there's another immigration policy. It's called the Remain in Mexico policy, where it basically destroyed asylum. So what is asylum? I'm not an immigration expert, but my understanding is that asylum is a person who fears for their health and safety in their home country can appear at an asylum country like the United States and say, I want asylum, and then they're supposed to be admitted to the country of America and then wait for a hearing on whether their asylum claim is valid. But what's happening right now is we've essentially stopped that. Trump has, and the Department of Homeland Security and Customs and Border Patrol have essentially stopped that. And now there's hundreds of Honduran and Salvadoran immigrants who are waiting in refugee camps on the border between Texas and Mexico, because rather than waiting for asylum in America, they're waiting for asylum in Mexico. And the Supreme Court and a federal court in California said that was unconstitutional. And the Supreme Court of the United States stayed the injunction pending appeal. So the policy is moving forward, and we actually have huge refugee camps on the Mexican-American border. But even though it's been ruled to be unconstitutional by a federal court. So it's not the caging children. It's a similar gross violation of immigration policy.
Well, I would love to hold you over and let you hear Donald Trump's biological sister. That is she's a former federal judge, so her credibility is stellar. But I'll just send them to you in an email. They're incredible.
Very good.
So if you could give your closing argument, my friend, greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes. So my closing argument is a little bit different from what it's been the last couple of weeks. The last month or so, I've been telling people to vote, and I'm telling people to vote again. But this time, I want people to read. And what I want people to read is the Senate Intelligence Report. The Senate Intelligence Report is kind of like the Mueller report, but it instead goes into even more detail about the reasons why Donald Trump committed treason and is likely being blackmailed by Russia. It's 1,000 pages. It's kind of hard to read, but please read the summaries. It's amazing. And with that, I'll bid you adieu.
Thank you so much, Amos. You're wonderful and awesome as always. That was Amos, a partner of the Law Office of Woolridge & Nunn, which is the law firm that is sponsoring our show tonight. If you have any legal problems, guys, we've got a couple of people sent over there, but I want to see more. I know there's legal problems out there. 972-866-4852. Ask for Amos or Hunter, and they'll take good care of you. Coming up on the show, can't wait for you to hear it. We've been waiting for the last few days. Donald Trump's biological sister doesn't really think very highly of her brother, and she lets it be known. This is John Hollywood, your host of All You Need to Know Radio, our number one worldwide show in our time slot. Thank you so much. Once again, we are now on iTunes, the number one podcast. This is Play It Again by Luke Bryan. Don't touch that dial.
I wanna dance for I said a word. She was taking my hand, spinning me around till it faded out. And she gave me a kiss, and she said, play it again, play it again, play it again. And I said, play it again, play it again.
Hey everybody, how's everybody doing out there tonight? Are you ready to end your debt forever? Are you tired of paying credit card payments every single month and all you seem to be doing is getting the interest paid and not lowering your actual balance? And you've thought to yourself, why am I in this mess? Let me tell you something right now. It is a situation that is happening with millions of Americans and their families, and it's very sad the government has not stepped in to do anything. Guess what? We are ready to help you. There is a company that is a new sponsor out there called American Negotiators. And let me tell you, are you ready to get out of debt? They say if you've been told there's nothing you can do, listen very closely because I'm about to tell you the truth and your family. Major credit card companies don't want you to know the truth. And the truth is you can actually settle your debt for less than what you owe. And yes, they will not go out of business because they lose a little bit of money. And the other families are able to go on with their lives and feel confident that they actually paid their bills. Pick your phone up right now and call 972-764-3120. Let American Negotiators go to work for you today with years of experience. Let them show you a better way to end your debt permanently. They've got over 30 years of proven experience with the president and CEO in the credit and debt industry, and they are ready to go to work for you right now. As an added treat, and because you heard it on All You Need to Know Radio, call 972-764-3120. That is 972-764-3120. And listen up, guys. Everybody that calls right now for the next 5 minutes, you will get 50% off their amazing debt negotiation services. Go to your phones and call them right now. American Negotiators is the only name you need to know to get out of debt. American Negotiators, ending America's debt one debt at a time. 972-764-3120.
And holding it tight. Emotional touch, touching my skin, and asking you to do what you've been doing all over again. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Don't think I can keep it all.
All right, everybody. That is Tim McGraw, super country music superstar Tim McGraw with his super country music star wife Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, excuse me. It's called "It's Your Love." It was one of their biggest hits. And so now, is everybody ready? Are you ready, guys? Are you sure? Well, we're going to start this off first. Is we're going to let you hear Donald Trump's, as much as I can take. We're only going to listen to about 3 minutes, and this is the highlights of last night. So get ready. Here we go.
I profoundly accept this nomination for President of the United States. Joe Biden's agenda is made in China. My agenda is made in the USA. This is the most important election in the history of our country. There has never been such a difference between two parties or two individuals in ideology, philosophy, or vision than there is right now. Our opponents believe that America is a depraved nation. We want our sons and daughters to know the truth. America is the greatest and most exceptional nation in the history of the world. For 47 years, Joe Biden took the donations of blue-collar workers, gave them hugs and even kisses. And I say very modestly that I have done more for the African-American community than any president since Abraham Lincoln, our first Republican president. By the end of my first term, we will have approved more than 300 federal judges, including 2 great new Supreme Court justices. America will land the first woman on the moon, and the United States will be the first nation to plant its beautiful flag on Mars. Joe Biden may claim he is an ally of the light, but when it comes to his agenda, Biden wants to keep us completely in the dark. He doesn't have a clue.
You can do this. Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus team up.
Oh my God.
Epic stories. The largest streaming TV library. And can't miss sports. Are better together.
All right, guys. So what do you think of what Donald Trump said? Were you impressed? I sure wasn't. Takes a lot to impress me, and Donald Trump is not something that does that to me at all. And it's really sad because it really gives me no pleasure to say anything bad about my president. But it's what it is. I mean, and you can't do anything about it. Accept part of it, and it's really a shame. I would hate for any of my brothers or sisters to be talking about me. Would you? I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't want it at all. But, you know, Donald Trump is a special kind of guy. He really does not care about people, and his sister knows that very much, and he makes sure her work does it. So we are ready. So, what kind of things do you think Donald Trump's sister said about her brother? You think he's nice? No. I'm going to tell you right now, she's not nice about it. And she's a former federal judge. So that's why she has no credibility issue whatsoever. And that's also why you have not heard very much flack from the White House about it. Because how can you decline a federal judge? That's what she is. And she just speaking the truth of what she feels about her brother. Everybody has siblings. It seems like everybody that knows this president doesn't like him. They never liked him. And for me, I think it's kind of sad. But the thing is that because this election is not in the bag by any means. You know, last night during the convention of the GOP, you did not hear anything about the coronavirus. It said that maybe there's going to be a vaccine. And Donald Trump waited till Dr. Fauci was in surgery before he made the changes. He basically threatened the FDA by calling them enemies, not enemies of the state, the big state, whatever one of those racist statements he makes. But here's the first thing Donald Trump's wife or his biological blood sister says. Here you go. Why is that not playing? Oh, okay. So that's not it. Guys, let's see some music to listen to. Here's one of my best friends in the world, and I love this song. Hard Half Empty. We'll be back. Okay, guys, this is John Hollywood, your host of All You Need to Know Radio, and I wanted to give you guys a special treat. One of my really good friends and
What you got if you ain't got love? The kind you just wanna give away. Go ahead and open up. Go ahead and let the light shine through. I know it's hard on a rainy day. You wanna shut the world out and just be left alone. But don't run out on your faith. Sometimes that mountain you've been climbing is just a grain of sand. And what you've been out there searching for forever in your hands, in your hands. Oh, when you feel that love is all that matters after all, it sure makes everything else seem so small. It's so easy to get lost inside a problem that seems so big at the time. It's like a river that's so wide, it swallows you whole. While you're sitting around worrying about what you can't change and worrying about all the wrong things. Time's flying by, moving so fast. You better make it count, 'cause you can't take it back. Sometimes that mountain you've been climbing is just a grain of sand. Oh,
That is the amazing country music superstar Ty Herndon, one of my best friends. Do me a favor, go to his social media, let him know just how amazing he is, because he is. But without further ado, here is the president's biological sister.
Goddamn tweet and the lying. Oh my God, I'm talking too freely, but you know, it is a change of stories, a lack of preparation, the lying, the holy.
Judge Barry also says the president had someone take his exams before he transferred to Wharton, and according to the Washington Post, he says, quote, Donald is cruel. It's a particularly relevant development given that the president's sister is basically repeating the arguments we heard from Democrat after Democrat at their convention last week, where Joe Biden's central argument seemed to be that he is empathetic and decent and the president is not.
All right, so we're going to play that one more time. Listen closely. There you go. Because she's being recorded by her niece, which she doesn't know is being recorded. But it is a legal recording because of the state they're in.
Goddamn tweet and the lying. Oh my God, I'm talking too freely, but you know, it is a change of stories, a lack of preparation, the lying, the holy.
Judge Barry also says the president had someone take his exams before he transferred to Wharton, and according to the Washington Post, he says, quote, Donald is cruel. It's a particularly relevant development given that the president's sister is basically repeating the arguments we heard from Democrat after Democrat at their convention last week, where Joe Biden's central argument seemed to be that he is empathetic and decent and the president is not.
All right, we have a couple of more. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll play, it's our last break of the night, and this is Justin Timberlake, Can't Fight This Feeling. Such an amazing song, such an amazing artist. Go buy his music. This is John Hollywood, your host of All You Need to Know Radio. And don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
We're flying up, no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body, so when it drops, ooh, I can't take my eyes off of it, moving so phenomenally. You're more like the way we rock it, so don't stop. It's under the lights when everything goes, nowhere to hide when I'm getting you close. When we move, well, you already know. So just imagine. Nothing I can see but you when you dance. Feel good creeping up on you, so just dance.
Sometimes it goes up on hot summer days, and sometimes it goes down when there's a lot of energy on the grid. But most of the time, it stays right around here. Now, all those other guys, you know, the ones that have been preying on you, your parents, and your neighbors for the past 20 years, they buy electricity at the wholesale price, mark it up, and then sell it to you at a fixed rate. And they don't just mark it up by a little, but by a lot. All the way up here a lot. These are savings that should be going into your pocket. Instead, they pay less while you continue to pay the same fixed rate up here all the time, until Gritty came along. We use technology and industry expertise to build a platform that cuts out unnecessary costs and connects you directly to the wholesale price of electricity. There are no markups, no contracts, and no early termination fees. For a monthly membership subscription, you're only charged what it costs to produce and transport your energy. It really is that simple. Go to gogritty.com to learn more.
With their beautiful creations. In the past, artistic success was as effortless as painting a beautiful woman, living a tortured life, and being a little bit weird. For today's artists, life isn't so simple. You're responsible for marketing, customer service, order fulfillment, trade shows, and more. And after all that time and effort, you may still go unnoticed by a public that's trapped in the daily grind. Only when you're dead does your art gain the attention and sales that you wanted. What about selling while you're alive and eliminating those business tasks that you hate? Introducing Pixels.com. Artists and photographers. Simply upload your images, set your prices, and we take care of the rest, including printing, framing, matting, packaging, shipping, collecting payments, dealing with your buyers, and sending you your profits each month. Buyers can browse through millions of images uploaded by living, breathing artists from all over the world. Each image can be purchased as a framed print, stretched canvas, acrylic print, greeting card, and more. Pixels.com prints and assembles your order and delivers a museum-quality masterpiece right to your doorstep. Your order arrives ready to hang and includes a 30-day money-back guarantee. There is simply no safer, faster, easier way to buy and sell artwork online. The world's greatest living artists and photographers. Pixels.com.
In Minneapolis this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to start with the question of the GDP numbers. They were awful in the last quarter. What did you see inside of those numbers?
Well, the thing that surprised me the most economically, we knew the GDP would be very low with 20 million Americans still out of work. The economy is reeling. There's one bright spot that I saw, though. The U.S. personal savings rate has taken off. Before the crisis, it was around 8%. Now it's around 20%. Now, let me tell you what's going on. Those of us who are fortunate enough to still have our jobs, we're saving a lot more money because we're not going to restaurants or movie theaters or vacations. That actually means we have a lot more resources as a country to support those who've been laid off. And so while historically we would worry about racking up too much debt, we're generating this savings ourselves. That means Congress has the resources to support those who are most hurting.
So one of the things that Republicans have brought up when they talk about this aid bill, and particularly the size of the unemployment benefit, is that it's putting too much strain on the deficit. And so is your point that the private savings is a cushion against that strain? That's the first part of the question. The second part is, but won't racking up debt ultimately be something we have to deal with in the long term?
Well, right now we're generating so much more savings than we have before. It's simply not an issue because we're not having to go abroad to fund the extra money for the CARES Act or whatever is to come. So that provides a lot of relief right now. And if you look over the long term, our inflation has been very low. Inflation continues to be low. Inflation expectations continue to drift lower. Right now, the U.S. can fund itself at very, very low rates. Congress should use this opportunity to support the American people and the American economy. I'm not worried about it. If we get the economy growing, we will be able to pay off the debt.
Let me say, inside of this bill they're debating on the $600 weekly unemployment help, one of the Republican arguments is that at $600, there's some number of workers who are getting paid more than they would in a job, and therefore they're staying at home. Do you see any evidence in the data that supports public policy based on that idea?
Well, not right now. Not when 20 million people are out of work relative to February. There's just so many fewer jobs than there are workers available. At some point, it'll be an issue. When we get the unemployment rate eventually back down to 5%, and we want to get it back down to 4% or 3.5% where it was before, yes, that disincentive to work becomes material. But right now, it's simply not a factor in the macro economy that we have in the U.S. because we have so many millions of Americans out of work.
What is your view about the path back to economic health? There have been halting efforts to reopen and to get the economy going again. Are they going to continue being halting until there is a vaccine? When does robust behavior come back? And what is the how are people behaving when it does get more robust?
All right, everybody, welcome back to All You Need to Know Radio. So we are going to continue to play these. Real quick, we're going to do our song pick of the week. Our song pick of the week is by one of the most incredible artists, I think, on this planet. I think he's 17 years old. Her name is Billie Eilish, and her brother sing and write music together, and her album won every award that you could win. So I'm not really sure how she trumps that, but we're going to see. But Billie Eilish is like nobody I've ever seen in music. But she just released this new song on Pick of the Week. Billie Eilish, I'm in love with my future. Take a listen.
I can't seem to focus, and you don't seem to notice I'm not here. I'm just a mirror. You check your complexion to find your reflections all alone. I had to go. Can't you hear me? I'm not coming home. Do you understand? I've changed my plans, 'cause
Just an amazing artist, Billie Eilish. If you have not heard of her, you definitely need to look her up on iTunes, on Spotify, on anywhere you can listen to music, because seriously, she is, in my opinion, the artist of the decade. I mean, her age, and she's a common person, as you can be a common person and such a brilliant person. All right, here you go, guys. Here's more of Mary Trump.
This goddamn tweet and the lie. Oh my God, I'm talking too freely, but you know, it is a change of stories, a lack of preparation, the lying, the holy.
Judge Barry also says the president had someone take his exams before he transferred to Wharton, and according to the Washington Post, he says, quote, Donald is cruel. It's a particularly relevant development given that the president's sister is basically repeating the arguments we heard from Democrat after Democrat at their convention last week, where Joe Biden's central argument seemed to be that he is empathetic and decent and the president is not.
Let's listen to that one more time.
This goddamn tweet and the lie. Oh my God, I'm talking too freely, but you know, it is a change of stories, a lack of preparation, the lying, the holy.
Judge Barry also says the president had someone take his exams before he transferred to Wharton, and according to the Washington Post, he says, quote, Donald is cruel. It's a particularly relevant development given that the president's sister is basically repeating the arguments we heard from Democrat after Democrat at their convention last week, where Joe Biden's central argument seemed to be that he is empathetic and decent and the president is not.
And the president is not. He's just not. He's just one of the most dishonest people I've ever encountered. I even actually hate covering him, but you have to, because it's our country. And then last night at the Republican convention, let me give you some good news. The Democrats, 24 million people that watched them in 4 days before Trump's speech last night, which I don't know how many that drove, because I honestly have not had time to do it. I think that it drove probably, I'd say 2,000 or 3,000 people is what I would say. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with all that. Last one with Mary Trump. Mary Trump, 4.
Deals with his base, he has no principles. None. And his base, I mean, my God, if you're a religious person, you want to help people. Change of stories, a lack of preparation, the lying, the holy shit.
And that's what we have so far for you right now. We will have some more that will probably either post on the website or something we'll do with that. Because I want to make sure that you hear the whole story. Because it's important to give both sides. Even though I don't have to, Donald Trump is not fair to anyone in his life. I'm sorry. That's not me. I have to be nice to everybody. So, this song is Pink, but we're going to leave you with this song because it's a little upbeat song, and I'm a huge fan of her, especially because of my ex. But this is Waiting for the Night by Jennifer Lopez, a mega icon superstar. And with that, we are out of time. Tonight's show is brought to you by Warwick 972-866-4552. Remember, take care of yourself and wear a mask if you go outside. This is John Hollywood, your host, live from Dallas, Texas. Good night.